Hey guys, Lori here with Sew at Peace. If you are new to my channel, I make handmade sewn products. So I make menstrual storage bags that hang from your toilet paper holder, and I make tote bags, and I make like zipper pouches and wristlets. So today I'm going to be making a tote bag for my friend. It's her birthday tomorrow. So I'm just going to kind of wing it and make a pattern that I don't sell on my website. So the fabric that I chose is this fabric, and I bought it a few months ago from Joanne and just haven't done anything with it. But I think it describes my friend perfectly. She loves plants and she loves books. And there's books in here. There's also a record player, which I thought was super cute. And I have this yellow fabric that I use for another project. So I'm going to use this on the bottom of the tote bag. And then I have this fabric that coordinates with the main fabric. So I'm going to use this for the lining as well. So I'm going to take my main fabric and cut out the two panels that I need for the front. So I'm going to piece the yellow part with it. Okay, I'm going to start by lining up the top so it's nice and even. Okay, so this is going to be 17 inches wide. So I'm just going to measure. I'm going to measure this to make sure I have enough. I do. All right. It's going to be 15 inches tall. So I'm actually going to reduce that because I need to save some room for the yellow fabric on the bottom. So I think what I was going to do was 4.5 inches. Yeah, so I'm going to do 4.5 inch yellow panels on the bottom. So 15 minus 4.5 would be 10.5. So I'm just folding this in half. That way it's a little bit easier to cut. Okay, so we need this to be 10.5 by 17 inches wide. I'm just going to cut off the selvage. Then we're going to measure out 17 inches. All right, I have two of the panels. Oop, that part's too small. I try to use the smaller ends of my fabric because you never know when you're going to need a big piece. So we're going to have to use this bigger piece. So we can actually do 17 inches by 9 inches. So we'll just make that bottom piece one piece. Okay, so we're going to put some interfacing on this, and I'm just going to kind of lay it out just so we can see what it's going to look like. So it's basically just going to be a little bit showing on the bottom like that. So I'm going to go ahead and add the interfacing. All right, so I added my interfacing to my pieces. This is a heavy interfacing. It's super thick. I bought it for the business, but it was too heavy for the project that I wanted to make with it. So we're going to use it on this tote bag. All right, so we're just going to get these two panels sewn together. So I'm going to clip these on here. I'm going to sew that. And then I'm going to add the other piece on here as well. Actually, we're just going to sew this first and then we'll add this piece because this is pretty stiff. All right, so I already have some white thread in my sewing machine, so I'm just going to use this. And I'm just going to sew these pieces together using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Back stitch. All right, there's one. All right, I put the other piece of fabric on the other end of this bag. So just make sure everything's going in the right direction. All right, there's the other piece. So I'm just gonna take this over to the sewing machine and press all of these seams open like this. All right, so all of my seams have been pressed open. So I'm just going to use this whole piece as a guide to cut out my lining. Okay, so I'm just going to measure this. So it's 29 inches long by 17 inches. So I'm going to cut my fabric. All right, so I've cut my fabric. It's 29 inches by 17 inches. All right, so what I'm going to do is go ahead and just create each little panel or each little bag. So we're going to fold this fabric right sides together. And then we're just going to take it to the sewing machine and get the sides sewn. All right, so I'm just going to put my clips on here. Okay, and then actually I forgot I need to do my box corners. So I like to just use 2 inches. I have this little template that I created. All right, we're gonna take it to the sewing machine and sew this side and this side. All right, so we can actually box the corners now. So I just take this square, put the crease to the seam. All right, so I boxed this corner. Just need to do this other side. All right, so we're just gonna sew 5/8 inch down here. All right, there's our corner. All right, that's what our corners look like. So there's one bag. All right, so I forgot about the straps. I need to add those to the main fabric before I sew that bag. So I made the straps. They're 24 inches by 5 inches. So I basically just folded this in half, used that as my guide, and then folded each piece over to the center and then folded it again. So I'm just gonna sew on each side of the straps. All right, this is the second strap. So I forgot to mention that the fabric I used is flannel. So it's pretty thick. I didn't need to use any interfacing and it's very, very soft. Okay, so I've attached my straps. I'm just gonna do like a little stitch here. That way it's in place when I when I sew my whole bag panel together. Okay, we're gonna do the other side. And I just sew it 3 inches down from the edge. All right. All right, so we're just gonna sew this side panel 5/8 of an inch. All right, and then this one we're just gonna box it when we're done sewing the side panels. All right, I like to take my little, any type of boxed thing when I do it this way and just put it in the corner so it gets it nice and flat, like a nice 90-degree angle. All right. And then we'll just measure out a 2-inch line. Okay, so we have our corners boxed and our line drawn. So I'm just gonna sew those corners. All right, this interfacing is super stiff, which is not a bad thing. Just harder to work with. But it'll give some nice structure to the bag. All right, and I'm not gonna cut these off. I think it just gives the bag a little bit more durability. So you're not gonna be able to see these. They're gonna be inside the bag, obviously. All right, I just put the lining inside the bag. So I'm gonna put right sides, matching right sides. I forgot to leave an opening in the bag, but that's okay. We can just leave an opening when we sew around this edge, and then we can flip the bag that way. So I'm just gonna pin all of this on here. First, we're gonna line up the seams, and then we just have to make sure our straps are inside the bag. Otherwise, it will not turn out correctly. I'm always forgetting to leave the lining in, or leave a hole in the lining when I'm sewing. It's kind of annoying, but leaving it at the top works too. It's just a little bit trickier sometimes to do your final stitch line on the outside. All right, I think that's pretty good. I'm just gonna mark on here where I want to leave the opening because I will forget. It always seems to happen. All right, we've sewn around the exterior. I'm just gonna flip it right side out. Hopefully I have enough room in here. This interfacing is so thick, so heavy. All right, this is taking a lot of manpower right here. Okay, I think I got it. Might have to press this again. This interfacing is so dang stiff. All right, I'm just trying to pop these corners out so they look nice. Working on the other side. All right, that looks pretty good. So I just need to pop the lining in here. Oh no. That was a fail. I ripped my fabric. Well, that really sucks. I don't know if there's a way for me to save this bag. All right, well, I guess I might be keeping this bag because I ripped it. All right, this is what I've decided to do since I clearly messed this up. I'm just gonna seam rip this entire lining. Then I will sew a new lining. Hopefully I have enough fabric. We'll see. I don't think I do actually, but I have another green fabric that I could put on here. So I will return. All right, so this is what I decided to do. I cut off 3 inches from the top where I tore it. And then I cut new strips of fabric. So these are 17 inches by 3 inches. I'm gonna sew these together. Then I'm going to sew it onto this bag. So I'm actually gonna leave an opening when I sew it. That way I can, when I sew it onto this bag, that way I can flip it from that area. We'll see how that works out. All right, so we've sewn the addition to this piece and I left a gap here so we can flip the package or flip the bag through that hole. So we'll see what happens. All right, let's try this again. So we're gonna do the same process that we did earlier. I'm not gonna record it. All right, so I've sewn around the exterior and left this gap between my mending piece and this other lining piece. So I'm gonna flip it around. Hopefully we don't have another casualty or else I'm gonna be very upset and I'm just gonna call it a day because I have other things I need to do today. Just had lunch too. Sometimes when you're frustrated, you just need to take a break, step away from the project, and then you come back with a different attitude, a better attitude. So we'll see how this came out. The worst part of sewing for me is seam ripping. I absolutely hate it. So that did not make me happy, having to undo that whole thing. Okay. I think everything looks good. Thank the Lord. So I'm going to just press this and then sew it right there to close the seam. And then we'll be done. I'll be back. So I'm just gonna sew this closed. All right, I'm just snipping off the extra thread. All right, so it's not really noticeable. Not too bad, it's on the inside. So I just sewed that close. And I did forget, I do have to do the whole, the stitch on the entire top. So I'm gonna go press this down as well and I'll be back. All right, so I pressed the entire outer lining or outer portion of the bag. So I'm going to stitch this closed. And my apologies, you can't really see too well on the from that angle, but I'll show you when it's done. All right, I forgot to add my label on here. I also added a snap button and I'm gonna sew on my label. All right, so I'm just gonna cut off all the extra thread. All right, you guys, I am all done. I am super happy with the way it turned out. It is adorable. I think she's gonna love it. I added a snap button in my label and just a simple tote bag. Here's how it's gonna look. Kind of want to make one for myself. I think it's so cute and it's so soft. The flannel material is so nice. The interfacing, again, it was kind of hard to work with, but it's really nice that it just sits up by itself as well without having to put like a bunch of layers of fabric. Typically in the tote bags that I sell, they're quilted, so I put a batting inside, so it gives it like a little bit more thickness overall, like a little bit more fluff. But this heavy interfacing worked super well. So yeah, just don't forget to leave the opening in your lining like I did. Well, that concludes our tutorial. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you all have a nice weekend.